Billy Napier is the most likely head coach to be the first head coach fired in 2024.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olsen. Happy Friday. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And as playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com now to get started. And betting odds have come out that the first head coach to be fired in 2024 will be Billy Napier. I intentionally worded the beginning because I kind of wanted you to sit through the intro with half of you going, finally, and the other half going, this mother. I kind of felt like we were get a good little divide there, and I'm here for conflict. I'm here to get messy. But betting, we'll talk about the rest of the guys on the list too, because I have some opinions about that. But betting odds have come out for the first head coach in college football to be fired in 2024. Billy Napier is the most likely head coach to be fired, or is the most likely head coach to be fired first in 2024. I'm still struggling with how to word that, but the first head coach to be fired in 2024. Billy Napier's plus 400, which those odds mean that if you bet $100, you will win another 400. So you'll get 500 total back. But before even saying anything else about other coaches, I will tell you this. I don't buy it. I don't, because in order for it to happen, this would have to be like a Murphy's Law kind of season. Like just looking at the Florida Gators schedule, you start with Miami, which you're going to be an underdog in that game. If you lose that game, you're going to be like you're the underdog. You're expected to lose that game. Samford, you'll be big favorites. Texas A&M, you'll be underdogs. Mississippi State, probably small favorites, maybe 2.5, 3.5 points, or just similar to the Miami line right now over Florida. But that beginning of the season, genuinely, like I've said, I think 3-1 is what you should be at the worst after those 4 games. I'm not bought in on Texas A&M at all. I think you should beat Miami, which I do think it's important to say. I'm not saying, oh, you should beat Miami because you're so much better than them. I've said before, if you play this game on neutral site, I'd give Florida a very, very, very slight edge in week 1. But if you played this game in week 8, even in this swamp, I think you're having a probably different conversation. But you get week 1 with a team that did that made a lot of transfer portal transactions. You get week 1 against them on your own home turf. It's tough. And I know like Miami is, South Florida, the University of Florida, Gainesville is more northern, but I feel like the heat there is different. Like I've been to both places. I think most people that have been to any Florida game have probably also been to Miami at some point in their lives. And I feel like the heat's different in Gainesville. I feel like there's no breeze or anything in game. Like it's different. So it is going to be different for Miami. I'm not saying it's going to be the deciding factor like Utah, for example, but it's going to play a part in it. I will say this as well. I don't think that the administration at the University of Florida, the UAA, I don't think the administration at Florida is operating with enough urgency or operating with the level of urgency it would take for them to fire Billy Napier early in the season. That just doesn't seem like something that this program would do right now, right? Like, because think about it. I'm not saying he won't be fired. I am completely talking about that's completely independent of this. I am saying that this administration has shown me nothing to make me think they're going to cut ties early with Billy Napier. which is what they would have to do in order to have him be the first head coach fired, right? Because realistically, you're probably going to get a coach fired somewhere week 6-ish, just based on how things typically happen. You get to the halfway point, kick someone out there, which again, for Florida right now, like the beginning of the season is where you should be at your best, right? You've got Miami, tough game, but one that I think Florida will win. Stanford, you should blow them out. Texas A&M, tough game, but one that I think Florida will win or should win. I think Florida's better than Texas A&M. Mississippi State, game that is on the road, but you should still win. You're clearly the better team. And then the tougher part of the schedule hits. I think UCF's a good team. I don't like when people go, we got to pummel them. I don't think that that's fair. I think UCF's a pretty good team. And offensively, they're a lot of fun. Offensively, they're really creative. Offensively, they have KJ Jefferson, who, if you don't remember KJ Jefferson, like the name should be at least a little bit familiar. But if you don't remember, KJ Jefferson was the Arkansas quarterback in 2023 that just went to Florida the entire game and beat Florida in the Swamp. So he will not be playing his first game ever in the Swamp. He's been there before. He'll show up this week or this year. But I do think that it just doesn't make sense to me. That'll be week 6. That's your week 6 game, UCF. I just can't see a time where we go, yeah, Florida will be looking to replace Billy Napier by that point. I've said before, I think that at the absolute earliest, it would be after the Kentucky game. I think if the season is not going according to plan and you're at that, after that Kentucky game, you get the bye week, I think there will be the time that we see any major changes. I think that even in the first 4 weeks, you go, oh, we're still trying to find our footing. Things like that. Then you have that middle 3, and then you have another bye week. And I think that's where you see changes. So if you're 2-5 after the Kentucky game, then sure. But by that point in time, someone else will be fired. Like that's my exact, by that point in time, someone else will be fired. And so I think that Billy Napier being the most likely head coach to be the first head coach fired is just wrong. I just don't see it like that. Again, and this is one of those things where when we talk about things from a national perspective, we had Max Chadwick on from PFF a couple weeks ago, and I say this all the time about national reporters. It's really hard to be good at covering things nationally, covering college football nationally. It's hard to cover the NFL on a league-wide basis. Of course, without sources, I mean, like to cover it based on just your intel. College football, you can't have intel with every single program. It's just not possible. I refuse to accept it. Maybe Dane Brugler would have that, but he's not even intel. He's an NFL draft guy. He's helping these people, right? So I think that I don't think it's good to cover this. I don't think it's possible. I think that plus 400 just tells me that you don't understand the administration at Florida, which you need to understand the administration in order to accurately predict who should be fired, who will be fired, whatever that may be, right? Only 5 of the 13 coaches included on that line were fired in 2023 at all. And we will talk about them and the rest of the list next on Locked On Gators. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by eBay Motors. With passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance with superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. So, like I said, only 5 of the 13 coaches included in the 2023 lines were fired in general. Just period, right? And the guy that they had as the most likely one to be fired first ended up being the third one fired. They had Jimbo Fisher as number one. Then they had Jimbo Fisher as number one. The first coach to actually be fired was Pat Fitzgerald with Northwestern. And the second coach to be fired was Mel Tucker at Michigan State. And that was, of course, extenuating circumstances where he was just a scumbag. But they weren't on the list at all, which Mel Tucker, I understand not having on the list. Pat Fitzgerald not being on the list was a little bit weird. I feel like the seat should have been hot, but I think that they kind of just thought, hey, it's Northwestern. They're not going to fire anybody, which is, again, got to know the administration that you're talking about, right? So Billy Napier is the most likely head coach to be fired first. Second, Sam Pittman, plus 500. So not drastically worse. However, I could see it with Sam Pittman. We were talking about last year going into the Florida game. We were like, hey, if Sam Pittman loses this Florida game, he could be out. They're doing horrible, right? They started the year at 2-7. Their schedule this coming year, they've got Arkansas Pine Bluff week 1 win, right? Then you go to Stillwater to take on Oklahoma State. Probably going to lose that one. Then you have UAB. You host University of Alabama, Birmingham. You host them. Probably going to win that one, right? Then you go to Auburn. Probably going to lose that. Then you go to Texas A&M. Probably going to lose that. Then you host Tennessee. I still think you're probably going to lose that. And at this point, you're 2-5. And then you take on LSU. Or, well, after Tennessee, you have a bye. And then you take on LSU. Probably going to lose that one as well. Mississippi State, you can win. Ole Miss, you're probably going to lose. Texas, you're probably going to lose. Louisiana Tech, you're probably going to win. Missouri, you're probably going to lose. 4 wins that season. Assuming things go how I think they will. That's 4 wins. I can't see the selling point of going, yes, Sam Pittman is the guy still. When you go, yeah, you were on the hot seat halfway through last season, which he was on the hot seat. And it was surprising when it was like, hey, Sam Pittman's coming back for next year. It was a bit surprising from people in Arkansas, too. I'm not just saying me personally. So it was a bit surprising there. I feel like a 2-5 start's good enough to get you ready, yeah, right? So Sam Pittman, I think is fair, right? Mario Cristobal was the next most likely. And as fun as it would be, I gotta say, I really don't think it's gonna happen. I really, if I'm not mistaken, now Miami gets to do different things with their contract disclosures because they are a private university. But if I'm not mistaken, he'd be owed about $62 million, I think, if he were to be fired. So yeah, I feel like we could chalk that one up to not happening. Which, hey, if any university is crazy enough to do it, it would be Texas A&M and then probably Miami because they're fine just throwing money around. So if they would do it, sure. But you also gave the guy, what, a 10-year contract? I think it was 10-year, $80 million contract. You're going to fire him in year 3. I don't think that happens either, right? Dave Aranda is one that I thought Dave Aranda was going to be at the top of the list. Look, I love Dave Aranda just from a schematic standpoint. I think he's just one of the best defensive coordinators of the 2010s. However, as a head coach at Baylor, things haven't exactly gone his way, and he struggled quite a bit, and I thought he was going to get fired last year. Hell, I know people that cover Baylor and talk about Baylor every day, Drake Toll, and he was like, what? Why is he back? Like the expectation was not that Dave Aranda way back. Clark Leah with Vanderbilt, I don't see him getting fired. I do think that that's one of those programs where you go, expectations were low-ish, but you've kind of exceeded them so far. I can't see 1 year being the deciding factor there. Not that he's been great, but yeah, I just don't see it happening there. Kalani Sitake with BYU, maybe, but I feel like he's very entrenched there. Ryan Day makes no sense. Just because I think the main selling point with Ohio State fans is fire him if he doesn't beat Michigan. That doesn't happen until late in the year. It's not going to be the first head coach fired. Justin Wilcox at Cal, Pat Narduzzi at Pittsburgh, which Pat Narduzzi, another one that I'm just like one of my favorite coaches on the planet. He's a very nice guy. I got to meet him at the Senior Bowl a few times. Yeah, he's awesome. Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati. If not, it's year 2. You'd fire him in year 2? Neil Brown at West Virginia, I could see they've been really underwhelming since he took over for Dana Holgorsen. Shane Beamer at South Carolina, maybe last year was pretty underwhelming for them, considering the level of talent that they had, because they did have quite a few talented players. But recruiting, they've done a decent job. They've kind of been winning back the state a bit. Tony Elliott at Virginia, I don't think so. Mike Locksley at Maryland, I don't think that either. I know that they've lost a lot, but I think that the administration will take that into account. And I also think like Mike Locksley was someone that when Nick Saban retired, someone reached out to me and they were like, hey, Mike Locksley's under consideration just now. And he's not a favorite, of course, but he's under consideration. Dabo Swinney. Dabo? National championship winning Dabo? I don't think they'll fire him. I feel like he's one of those coaches where even if he has a rough stretch, like he would need like 4 or 5 bad years to get rid of him. And they've still been recruiting at an elite level. Their defense is really good. Their defensive line's arguably the best in the country. Tough. Lincoln Riley, I see him leaving being more likely than him being fired. But again, like Brent Venables next and then Deion Sanders. A lot of these, I don't think Deion would go because even if they're losing games, he's a hype machine. He brings in a lot of money. Revenue helps them. Like he brings in eyes, which helps your entire conference, really. People want to watch Colorado lose. He's like a heel in the WWE. It's like, yeah, like I hate him, but I want to watch him because I want to see him lose. So it's like that kind of approach. Brent Venables, I don't think so. I do think that he's had some things really go awry. Like it's weird that their whole offensive line left in the transfer portal, considering they've built Bedenbaugh, who's one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. I feel like the support at Oklahoma is not that good, and it's less on the coaching staff. Because again, Bill Bedenbaugh is a guy who's just like, that makes no sense for him to lose his whole O-line unless it was things like NIL. But so many of these names, I don't see being early fires. I don't. Like I think that you've got a better chance of seeing someone like, I don't know, like I'm just trying to think of like a small school, like Biff Poggi with Charlotte, which I don't think will happen anyway. And I'm knocking on wood. I don't want that to happen at all. But just like that kind of thing where it's going to be a small school that kind of just pops out and does it and makes that decision. But the lines are weird. I don't like a lot of them. I do think Dave Aranda should be higher unless they have like an easy start to the schedule. But I feel like these betting lines don't even take that into account, if we're being completely honest. I just don't. I feel like these are lazy. Yeah, you've got Utah early on. You've got Colorado, BYU, Iowa State. Like you've got 2 wins that I'm like, okay, you're going to win those for sure in your first 2. Actually, even one, because I'm not going to say you're going to beat Air Force for sure. So you got Tarleton State to start the year, but after that, it's not an easy schedule. So yeah, I guess I'd see Dave Aranda. I might throw some on Dave Aranda. To be honest, I love him, but hey, I might have to throw some. We are about to talk about recruiting because the Florida Gators are making significant progress with 2 skill position players. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Gators. I love sports. I love them so much that I never want them to stop, especially when my New York Mets pull off a series sweep, the Subway Series sweep over the New York Yankees in just absolutely dominant fashion. Love it. Absolutely. Florida Gators legend Pete Alonso hit a 2-run home run in the last time they played, the last game the other day. So that was fun to see. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Wonder what Dylan Cease's no-hitter was yesterday. Probably pretty damn good. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making most of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever the podcast and on YouTube. And like I said, the Florida Gators are making some significant progress with 2 recruits that should be acknowledged. First one that we'll talk about is Ben Hanks, because that's the one that has the more recent news, right? If you are part of the Locked On Gators Insider Program, the link's in the description below if you want to join it, because if you're not, you're missing out. I'm just saying. I submitted a prediction to the Locked On Gators Insiders on July 1st for Ben Hanks Jr. to be a Florida Gator. Okay? I will have you know, if you're not part of the Insider Program, you're missing out because of the submissions that I've made so far, the predictions I've made, we have not gotten any wrong yet. Okay? Not that we've gotten everyone right, but we haven't gotten any wrong. I'll pull it up. We've gotten, whenever I can actually find it. So we've put in predictions for Ben Hanks Jr. to be determined. Vernell Brown III, correct. Miles Johnson, correct. 2026 corner Jalen Waters, correct. Tight end Tayshaun Gelsey, correct. Nashawn Montgomery to be determined. We'll talk about that in a minute. And Kobe Howard to be determined, which I do think he will be the first one we're wrong on. Only because I don't think he's a take for Florida. But I still feel confident about if he was, he'd be a Gator. All that to say, we have not been wrong yet. So if you're not part of the Locked On Gators Insider Program, you are indeed missing out. Just saying, that's kind of on you. But On3 yesterday submitted their our RPM, recruiting prediction machine, I think it stands for. They submitted that yesterday. 2 people did. It was I think Keith and Nick both submitted them. I am a big fan of Ben Hanks Jr.'s film. Okay, first off, you need premium players at premium positions. Ben Hanks Jr. is a blue chip corner that is one of the best pure corners in the recruiting class. I almost said the draft. In the recruiting class. And by pure corners, I mean not guys that we look at and we go, he might be a better receiver, which we saw. I mean, Jameer Grimsley is one of those guys that is a Florida Gator, is a corner, but he's one of those guys where when he was coming out of high school, there were people going, Jameer Grimsley might be better at receiver than corner, but we're going to play him a corner. That's what I mean. Not that kind of guy. Not a DJ Pickett from Zephyr Hills who committed to Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. I forget. I know he wasn't going to be a Gator, so stopped caring. Or LSU. He committed to LSU. He committed to LSU because Corey Raymond, thought he was going to go to Oregon, wanted him to go to Oregon. But him, where it's like, well, he might be a better receiver and he might be a better safety. Like those kinds of things where you go, yeah, I don't know about that. Not with Ben Hanks. With Ben Hanks Jr., you watch his film and you go, that's a corner. The slick hips, the long arms, that's a corner. That kind of play style. I think he has true cornerback 1 potential. Okay. I don't just mean, he could be a starting corner. That's pretty good. I mean, he can be your top cornerback and you're happy with that. And that's different too. I think there's a lot of guys where we talk about and we go, oh yeah, he could be your top corner. But I don't know if I'd be, ecstatic about that given their ceilings. I think Ben Hanks Jr. ceiling is really high. So if he is a Florida Gator, I will be ecstatic. Like we've been waiting for a summer commitment for Ben Hanks Jr. and that's still expected, but it could push into the fall. And I'm not saying that it will happen this weekend, but because Ben Hanks Jr. is not expected to be at the cookout, he's not expected to be at Grill in the Ville, like none of that stuff. So I don't think he's going to commit this weekend. And I'm actively saying I don't think he's going to commit this weekend. But I am also saying any time wouldn't surprise me. I do think that it takes until late in the summer. I think he might want to wait for a couple games for the Gators to see how things pan out, how that goes. But I will say that right now, I feel like I'm just sitting here looking at Ben Hanks Jr. and I'm just like, oh, well, any time could happen and it wouldn't exactly shock me at this point. So would be excited about that. Like I said, submitted a prediction on July 1st to the Locked On Gators Insiders. Stand by it. Then there's wide receiver Nashawn Montgomery, who set an August 25th commitment date, which I don't know if this is the relevance behind it, but he set the August 25th commitment date. He is going to be in Rhode Island that week. That's where he's originally from. So I'm pretty sure he just wanted to be home, quote unquote, where he's originally from. Again, just wanted to be there to make that commitment, be around family and everything like that. That's my guess. Because Nashawn Montgomery is also the one where he was like, yeah, well, I kind of want to wait a week or 2 into my season and see how that goes and then make a decision. And I was saying that I think he's waiting to see how Florida performs. But now that he's set that August 25th date, I think he's also thinking, I want to be around friends and family and people that have known me my whole life. And I want to be around them to make that decision. And when I make that decision, we did put in a prediction for him on May 28th. Put in a prediction for Nashawn Montgomery the same day that I put in a prediction. In fact, I think even in the same message that I put in a prediction for tight end Tayshaun Gelsey. And of course, tight end Tayshaun Gelsey committed to the Florida Gators. But also with Nashawn Montgomery, it was interesting. He included the top 6 when he announced the commitment date, which I thought was interesting. Just going to be honest. Thought it was interesting. It's Florida, LSU, Penn State, Alabama, Florida State, and Oregon, which Penn State was the one that I expected most. Honestly, I thought it was going to be Florida and Penn State there, but he's also got LSU, Alabama, Florida State, Oregon in there. I still think he's Florida. I think Penn State is another school that was hot on him earlier. And then, like I reported in early June, I think it was, that, or maybe even May, that Penn State wasn't pushing as hard for Nayshawn Montgomery just because they felt like they were too far behind. Like that's exactly what it was that I reported. I was like, from what I've been told, Penn State's not pursuing Nayshawn that much anymore because they feel like they can't make up ground at this point. Like they feel like they're out of the game, which I thought meant that he was going to make a decision soon. Maybe things have changed since then, of course, but I was also told that now that they felt that they were out on him, they started like prioritizing local kids, and Kobe Howard is one still that they are pursuing from pretty far away. But Nayshawn Montgomery is someone that, put in the prediction on May 28th, sticking to it today. Put in the prediction for Ben Hanks Jr. on July 1st, sticking to it today. And yeah, I feel pretty good about those. Maybe the August 25th thing is the staff, if he's going to be a Gator, going, hey, why don't we get some good momentum there? But he's committing, a little bit less than a month from today now. Anything can happen, as we know. And those anythings aren't always really fun, but they can happen. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. We will, I don't think, be back tomorrow, but hey, if crazy stuff happens, crazy stuff happens. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I'll see you all next time.